Hello and welcome back to another recorded coaching session. I'm your host, or coach in this case, Suzanne Kohlberg, and today I am joined by Grace. Welcome, Grace. I've got to ask before we even start, the wave picture over your shoulder, did you do that one?
Yes.
It's glorious. Absolutely glorious. I know you're an artist, so that's why I asked. So before we kick off into what we're going to jump into today, would you like me to read what you typed in your application form, or do you want to start with something totally different? And if you've forgotten what you've written, that's okay. That's like 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I don't remember what I wrote exactly.
Cool.
So,
Well, I'll give you a refresher. And if you want to start with that, we totally can. And if you like actually know something else is more front of mind, we can go there. So you wrote artist to entrepreneur. I loved that. How to create an outlet for my art and how to find clients who want to learn how to paint their own muse. And then you said lack of faith in myself, because one of the questions was what's been holding you back mostly, and an innate aversion to people, which I was like, I get you. As a shy, socially awkward, highly sensitive introvert, I was like, yeah, people, no. And then you said, which was curious, it was a 7 out of 10, because I always ask people, how important is this right now, where 0 is not at all and 10 is like the most important. And you said 7 out of 10. So before we begin, is that what you want to focus on today, or has something else come up more front of mind?
well, interesting. The 7 out of 10 is probably a large part of the issue.
Yes, yes.
And I'm right. I recognize that my drive is not where it needs to be a good coachable client. because as I'm relatively comfortable in my life.
Yes.
And my lack of desire to be around people. I mean, I actually said to my husband, I'm kind of enjoying being a hermit right now. He's been away for 2.5 weeks. I've been having a nice, peaceful, quiet, all by myself retreat at home without having to go anywhere. And I'm actually slightly terrorized by the fact that I'm flying up to Ottawa on Wednesday, and it's going to be like people to people to people to people to people, and I'm just going, oh, do I really want this at all? I mean, can I just like figure out a way to not make it to the airport or whatever? Like literally, and it's not the way I should be feeling. I mean, should is a terrible word anyway. It's like, it's a bad spelling for something else that we usually do to ourselves. Um, so really it's how to build a drive to do something that provides a service, because that's really at this point. I mean, I think I've told you before, I have done most of my life as a volunteer.
You have, yes.
And because of that, I really feel like the universe has provided for me on many levels, but I'm not independent.
Yes.
So that's kind of, the tipping point of all this like 7 out of 10.
Yes.
It's important, but it's not driving me.
Okay. So if we were to get to the end of this hour together and you're like, that was a wonderful use of my time, what would you like to take away?
That's a huge question.
Totally is.
It's like knowing the answer before you start the test. Oh, what would I like to take away? I guess the number one thing I would like to take away might be more clarification on what my service is.
Perfect.
Because, I know what my gifts are. I know my talents. That part of the confidence is not lacking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I do have a confidence lacking in what do I have to offer?
Yeah. And it makes sense. If you're not sure what it is that you're selling, then it kind of makes sense that you're not going to be all in or really confident. Because can you imagine if you and I were going to the movies together and we're like, I don't know, what do you want to watch? And like, I don't know. Well, we'll ask the person at the cinema. So we arrive at the cinema or the movies. I don't know if you guys call it a cinema there. And we're like, can you tell us about what's showing? Well, there's something about a shark, and there's something about a house, and there's something about people with emotions. Like, they're not really selling it to us because I don't even know what it is that's showing. And I imagine they'd show us the classified and we could watch the trailers or whatever. But someone comes to you and says, Grace, I'd love for you to help me paint my own muse. Like, people don't tend to have that level of clarity. So yeah, no, that's perfect. But my other question comes back to the relative comfort. And I wonder if this is linked. So I'm just fishing here. Feel free to say if it doesn't link. If we're a 7 out of 10, we're kind of comfortable. We're not, we don't have this drive. And when you said I'm relatively comfortable, I don't know what you call them in Canada. In here, in Australia, be an inner tube. If you go to a water park and you can get into one of those
Right.
inner tube things and you can kind of float around like the lagoon, getting into one of those inner tubes is kind of easy. You just kind of slide your way in. And, if it's me in my perfect world, I'd have a book or something. No one else is going to splash me because, I'd have the whole place to myself, sliding right in. But then when you want to get out, it's really kind of impossible. Like, it's like a beached whale situation for me because I can't just slide out as easy as I slid in. I might splash and get water up my nose and bathers up my butt and everyone's going to see and all this sort of thing. So it's kind of like, I want to do this thing. I feel this desire, but I'm not quite sure what it is or how it's going to be. And I don't really kind of like people. So if you're comfortable in your kind of inner tube, it's no wonder it's a challenge to kind of get out of it. Like, sometimes people are like, oh, when you see the rags to riches stories or things online, it's like rock bottom because the only way is up. But you don't have to hit rock bottom to change. But when everything, like, when the tube is popped from underneath you and you hear people who go, well, I was here and I was there, and they do these amazing things in a way because they had no other choice. But if you're in a relative comfort, as you said, I've spent most of my life as a volunteer. I'm not independent, but the universe kind of takes care of me, and this is kind of comfortable around. Do we want to risk rocking that to do something else that is, we don't know if it's going to work out. We don't know if we're going to fall out spectacularly and everyone's going to laugh, or if we would have been just better off hanging out in our tube reading our book.
Well, and if that's a choice, I mean, I love water. Yeah, hanging out in that inner tube might be very pleasant, but at the same time, I think that, yeah, I'm going to dive into, the father wound or the parent wound that basically says, and it many artists have it, you can't be successful as an artist.
There it is.
And
Yes.
it's not the weird part is I was given all the support in the world to be an artist. My father's mother was an artist, but she was a stay-at-home mom, and she never worked. She didn't work outside the home and have a profession. That type of didn't work. No such thing as a woman not working. But she was an artist for her own sake, for her own self. And I don't believe she ever sold art. She gave it as gifts, which I've done a lot of. I have sold art, but in terms of sort of getting it out there and banging the bushes and things, I have not done that.
Okay.
But
Why
I
not
also
though?
hold this lingering thing that my father basically said, well, what are you going to do with your life? You can do your art, but what are you going to do? And that has been such a thorn. My father was a psychiatrist. This is the dumbest thing in the whole world for him to have ever said. Like, talk about blind in your own family. Yeah, hugely.
But I wonder, like, when people have psychiatrists, doctors, medical, it kind of reminds me of, like, my sister was married to a chef. He could make the most brilliant food. And if you went to his restaurant, it would be a feast. If you went to his house, it'd be frozen pizza. I kid you not, because all of his energy and effort went into his career and his vocation. And when he got home, he's like, I just don't want to cook. Frozen pizza, frozen pies. That was all we ever had. That if we went to his restaurant, we'd get a meal. And I think sometimes too, people I've worked with, their parents were doctors or psychologists or whatever. So they know the ins and outs and what they would present to their clients versus when they got home, it's like, well, I'm not being paid for this shit. I'm sure it's not conscious, but it's just kind of like, it's different. But when you say you can't be successful as an artist, the very first thing is, well, what do you mean by success? Like you said, I think your father's mother, did art and gave it away. For some people, that would be success. But are you talking about you want to make a career, like a paid vocation? Is that success for you? Or being in a museum, would that be? Because that's the thing, you get to decide what success for you means.
True.
I'll give you an example while you're thinking about it.
Right,
I've written a book, which I've self-published, which I'm pretty sure you've read because you sent me an email about it a while back.
I have.
I'm an author, baby, according to me. I've made the decision. One's not done. I'm actually writing another one, but that's it. Because there's no dictionary definition of author. Some people are like, you're not an author unless you're traditionally published. Like self-publishing doesn't count. Some people are like, you're not an author unless you make the New York Times bestseller list. Some people are like, you're not an author unless you have a body of work. You've got to put out a book a year. Like everybody has their definitions. When we say something like you can't be successful as an artist, then we really got to question, what does success to an artist mean to us? Because like for me personally, but obviously I'm not an artist, my son is, having your picture on the wall screams, if I had my own art, if I had the stones to hang up my own art in my house, that would feel successful to me. But then again, what does it mean to you?
I suspect it ties to my husband and his response, because it's about the sort of, not that I married my dad, not by a long shot, very radically different people, but he has the same sort of, well, what are you going to do with all this art? Like there's only X amount of walls in this house, most of which have my art on them already. My studio is full and overflowing. It is time to move it out. And success for me would be, in fact, yes, moving some of that out of there. Yes. Creating more sense. Like not to stop making, because that's not going to happen. I mean, as a kid, my recognition of that comment was, you're kind of telling me I can't be successful as me.
Oh, yeah.
That is what I home from it, because my entire being has always known I was an artist. Like it's what I came in with. So yeah, that's like that massive dagger, to kind of remove that dagger and say, but I can be me. I can't even not be me.
Yes. And so, you have a website. So we haven't spoken in a couple of years, like one-to-one, but you were starting, or you'd started, so I'm sure you sent it through to me, a website. And were you also thinking about selling your art, not only as is, but as prints, so people could do prints and stuff with it? What happened with that? And no judgment if it didn't fizzle, but
it's there, but I haven't done anything with it. I haven't pushed it anywhere. It just is sitting there taking money every month or every year.
And for anyone listening, this is so common, because I don't know where they teach it, or if you just see it on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, like have a website and your business will take off. And it's like, it's the least true. I've never known anyone who had a website and their business took off, because you need to drive traffic to it. And then somebody will say, oh, do SEO and whatever. And basically websites kind of like boats. They can be holes in the water you just throw money at. So yeah. Because you've got to have hosting, and then you've got to have thing. And I remember I was coaching somebody not that long ago who had her website up for quite some time. And on her website, she had a form, like a type form that you could fill in. And anyway, no shame or shade, I was like, so what do you do when people fill this in? And she's like, Suzanne, I don't even know where it goes. Somebody set it up a couple of years ago. So I was like, there potentially could be people who filled in this form wanting to hear back from you. No shame, no judgment, but and you don't have a way. And anyway, she tracked it down, and I think she had about 20 responses, which is not insignificant, especially given she wasn't sending any traffic or whatever. Some of them were spam, you could tell, like bananarama612 at something or other.com. It's like, okay. But, you know, none of these things are uncommon. When you're new, when you're starting out, you kind of put the things there because someone tells you have a website, and then it's like, well, all the fear of like, you know, there's layers to this, and that's what I want to bring attention to. So it's been sitting there. Once again, it's another thing that costs. So when it comes to, and I think it's linked to this 7 out of 10, but like actually saying, like, say I said to you right now, Grace, that picture behind you, I love it. Like, is it for sale? Is it a yes or no? Let's just pretend. Can I buy that?
That's a weird one. I'd almost have to ask my husband, but.
So say it's a no. Well, could you say no, but I have other pieces similar, or no, I have other things you could look at? Like,
I could say no, but I could certainly do a commission piece for you that would, you know, be similar.
Cool. How much?
400
US or Canadian?
Well, I would normally go Canadian because I just.
Yeah, no, it's okay, because when you, these are all things though. Like, I'm deliberately putting you on the spot.
I get offended by Canadians using American money.
Oh, that's a whole story for another day, because I'm an Australian and that's whatever.
Because it costs me a lot.
Same. That's why I asked. But for anyone with an online business too, always state your currency straight up. 400 Australian dollars, 400 Canadian dollars, 400 US, 400 rands, pesos, whatever it is. Because most people will assume US because it's the universal currency. But that's why it's always worth asking. 400 Canadian is certainly a lot different to 400 American, especially right now.
No, it's about the same as 400 Aussie, I think.
We're very similar. I think you guys are slightly better than us. But all of this to say, it was pretty close to the surface. So say, okay, say I transferred you this money right now. I was like, okay, how do I pay? I'm deliberately putting you on the spot. So
I know you are. I do have a PayPal. I've not used it for business, but I do have one.
Cool. So you send me a PayPal me link. Wonderful. Alrighty. So then say I'd paid for it. Oh, actually, if we got off this call and this was a legit like sales call, would you feel confident to like jump into PayPal and send me a PayPal me link or whatever straight away? Or would you sit on it for a while?
Well, we would have to discuss I mean, you're in Australia, I'm here in Canada. There's a shipping issue.
Oh, 100%. But you could just say plus shipping. And you could have added that too.
You have to say plus shipping because that is not going to be a freebie.
Oh, of course not. But you'd be asking, but these are the things, like these are things we want to have close to the surface. And also too, you never know. Just so happens I'm making my way to the US next month. I'm not going to Canada, but I could have been like, pick it up on the way through, because there's a commission piece I've purchased from a lady called Karen Light. And I'm picking that up when I go to the US. So, it can happen, but all of these things, we want to have them close to the surface. And the reason I was asking how soon would you invoice me, and if you're listening, you know who you are, and I love you greatly. I was coaching someone as in a paid client, not these free sessions. It was either last week or the week before. So it's been at least 1 week, if not 2. And she had a new offer. And I legit said to her, I want to buy it. Send me an invoice after this call. I'm still waiting. And because sometimes when you're new, you're like, oh my God, were they real? Were they not? Were they this, were that? And I was like, no, this isn't a practice call. I want to buy this thing. As soon as we hang up, send me through however it is you want me to pay you. And she has not. And I think it all ties into the, how are you going to make money doing this? Can I be successful being me? Are they just being nice? Or what if they don't like it? Like all of these things. So we want to see, like, do you have, like you said, more clarification about your service? When someone says, hey, can I buy that? Do you have a like yes or no, or I could do something similar, or here's, because you said you had a house full of art, like it's overflowing, and an office. You could be like, I could look through the pieces that I have, photograph them, send them to you, and you could choose. But being comfortable having these kind of conversations, and then, like I don't think, because you said at the beginning, it's not about creating, it's not about, and I don't think, and I'll ask, do you feel any sort of hesitation about letting your pieces go? Like if people do buy them?
Not generally. Some pieces, yes. I mean, I have a piece over the fireplace that I painted specifically for my husband. If somebody wanted that painting, they'd have to negotiate with him as well as me.
Yes.
Because I couldn't give away someone else. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's not
Yeah, it's not just yours. Yes.
but I did paint it at his behest. So, you know, that type of thing. I actually had I had a MP who came around and she was canvassing for the last election, and she went into my studio and she bought a painting
Oh my
right
goodness.
then and there for her daughter, who is who is a doula. And this painting was of a pregnant woman and all sorts of light language all over it and other stuff, but she sort of was hemming and hawing over two different paintings, and I couldn't give it to her right then because I hadn't actually varnished it.
Mhm.
Like, it wasn't ready to go out the door, which is another thing I have to actually figure out, is how to get everything up to ready to go out the door.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff that I get done and then get it on the walls, and I just don't quite get that last step taken care of. I had someone buy a painting off my wall at dinner one night, a dinner guest. He said, "How much for that painting up there?" And I kind of went, because I didn't really expect someone to buy my paintings off my wall during dinner.
I'm not surprised. The other one, I'm guessing it's the one you referred to in your fireplace, because you, before we hit record, you got up and changed your light, and there was that piece. Oh no, slightly this way,
Yeah.
a sunset or
Yeah.
something. That
Yeah.
I was like, that's
Yeah.
glorious as well. So, just random question. Once again, you might be like, that's not a thing here. Is it legal in Canada or where you live in your province to have like a garage sale?
Oh yes.
So, would you ever consider borrowing, stealing, acquiring lawn furniture, canvas, what do you call it? Whatever. Putting all your stuff out on your front lawn. Here's Grace's independent impromptu art show, gallery, opening night, and selling them that way.
Yeah, it would probably be better for me to put a big sign out up the street and have people come into the studio, because it rains here.
Oh yeah, okay. Would you feel comfortable?
Really
like, would it be option to have people into your house? Like, is that a comfortable thing for you?
In the house?
Yeah, like in your studio. Does that have
in the
side
studio,
access,
yeah.
or do they have to come through your house? Or I'm not sure
No,
what the
no.
setup
The
is.
studio's a separate building.
What's stopping you doing that?
A mess.
Do you think people care if a studio is a mess? Like, honestly, if you walked into someone's studio, if it was you walking into an artist's studio, are you looking at the mess or are you looking at the pieces?
Well, I have to admit, most people look at the pieces. I have to admit.
As long as it's not a tripping hazard and dangerous, and you're going to like have a situation where somebody might trip over a paint bucket or something. But like, in terms of if it's safe to navigate the space, do you think they're really going to be looking at that?
Probably not. You're right. Probably not.
I must admit, if I go to somebody who's creative's place and it's neat, for me personally, I'm like, this is a bit screwy. Like, I'm used to paint and mess and glitter and paintbrushes and, you know, stuff, because as a fellow creative type person, if you look at my desk, there's a whole situation there. But if they were coming to my house to purchase stuff, I don't think they're looking at that. They're looking at the pieces. And could you, these are only options. You don't have to do any of this stuff. Take a photograph, put them on the local Facebook page, say studio opening, 20th of June, 9 to 5, or I don't know, whatever's the weekend. Or invite people, like, have you got the details of that MP who bought the piece? Could you send an email and say, hey, I've got some other pieces you might be interested in? Or is that like hell's no for you?
Well, she's, how do I put it? She's no longer the MP.
Doesn't mean she doesn't want to buy art.
No, it doesn't mean she doesn't want to buy art, but she does know where I am, and she did see art. So if she wanted it, I think she would come back on her own, but I might be wrong. Her personality is much more liable to go banging on people's doors than I am. That I can guarantee.
She might, but if someone sent you a message, so, oh, it's not here. Oh, usually it's by my desk. A while back, I commissioned this lady to paint the spirit of my business. I don't know. It sounded cool. She had this offer and I was like, that's awesome. And anyway, literally it's been 2 years. She sent me an email like on my birthday, because I turned 40 a couple of months back, saying, hey, it's been a while. Would you be interested in another piece? And I was like, yes, I would. Like, I look at it every day and think that's lovely and whatever. I still haven't gotten back to her, but if she sends me another, she's in, baby. Cha-ching. How much? Because sometimes, yeah, we could, and she might look at it and be meaning to, oh, there's that Grace lady, I should get in contact with her or whatever. But, you know, we're not bothering people by just reaching out. Because I think, you know, imagine the people you could get if you're happy to do commissioned pieces, and then obviously everything's plus shipping, and you'd have to work out, like, for me personally, I can't stand going to the post office, but you know, you do you, and prepping it to, you'd have to add that to the price because it's shipping. I always wondered why they said shipping and handling until I had to post some things that are a bit awkward or whatever, because you want to get it ready so it doesn't end up dented, or, you know, so it'd have to be like worth your while. Or maybe you don't do it shipping, maybe it's pickup only, or maybe with your commissioned pieces, like the lady Karen from the US, I have it as a digital high quality image right now, and I'm getting it printed onto a mouse pad of all things, so I can see it here on my desktop. But like, if I didn't get the actual piece, I wouldn't be that phased, because it's currently my screensaver on my computer and it's going to be my mouse pad soon enough. So I think sometimes we get stuck in the traditional thing of artist and art, but art is so much more now than the thing on the wall. And, you know, like, so if I didn't, like, because the shipping to Australia is exorbitant. So if I couldn't pick up, if I wasn't going to the US next month, I'd just be like, I'd literally pay you for these. But, you know, not everyone would. You might be like, some people won't, but some people do.
True enough. Yeah, I have actually, we've got a local slum. I live in the middle of nowhere. Like, there's so few people here, it's insane. But
I'm not surprised when you said at the beginning about not liking people and stuff. I was like, I feel you.
which is lovely as a hermit. It's just like a lovely arrangement. But we have our little local community is starting to sort of gel, and the community center is reaching out more, and has set up a website or a Facebook page. And that is, yes, I've been seriously thinking that I want to create a workshop offer and post it on there.
Yes, because that's actually,
you also talked to someone else about, someone was in my studio, and I said, you know, I think I want to talk to the community center about doing a Women's Day art gallery. Like, the work I have in the house here is all traditional landscape stuff. The stuff in my studio is primarily what I call diva, divinely inspired visionary art.
Oh, I love that.
And it's women's image of women, because women have to reclaim their own image. It's always been done by men for like hundreds of years. So I am an intentional creativity teacher. I'm also a soul art guide. I have mashed those two together in my practice. And so the images are very potently feminine. And that's the type of thing that I thought I would see if I could do a showing at the community center for Women's Day. And this other woman who was there says, absolutely, you have to do it. So I'm going, okay. I am beginning to develop a few small friendships around, which is probably helpful to push me in the right direction on occasion.
So that was leading to my next question, because at the very front end, the thing you sent in to me was how to find clients who want to learn how to paint their own muse. Is your passion selling your own art? Because you said, you know, your house is kind of overflowing. Or is your passion guiding people to create their own art? Or
my passion is guiding up people.
Yes.
I have no objection to selling some of my art to clear out space. I'm also in the process of writing 3 books.
Oh, why 3? Are they related to each other? Are they independent? Tell me more.
The first one I started into, and it's well on the way. It's essentially a gallery, the visit to the gallery on the like an opening day or opening whatever, and the artist is there discussing. So it's as if you bumped into me in the gallery and I will tell you something about that painting.
Yes, nice.
So it's not there's no plot to it. There's no, it's just each piece has its own story.
I love that. Yes.
So that's one I'm doing, and I'm at like 85 pages or something in. The other is actually, it's transcribing a bunch of notes I did for I did 8 years of silent retreats and 7-day silent retreats. The amount of stuff your brain gets downloaded, and I just had been writing all this stuff, and I thought I'm just going to put it all together and just, it's kind of just musings from silence.
That sounds incredible.
I could send you a digital copy if you want.
Yes, please do. I'd love to have a look at that.
You could read that. Read all about me. Yes. So it's basically, it's a whole lot of just downloads and musings. It's not, once again, it's not a plot line. There's no story arc to this. And the third one is just somewhat similar, but it's mostly sort of poetry.
Nice.
It's like stream of conscious poetry. I don't write poetry like formal.
Yeah, I get
stuff.
what you mean. Can I ask a question? It's just amusing in the back of my mind. That saying that, the father wound, or, can't be successful an artist, or your husband, you're kind of saying, what are you going to do with all this art and stuff? Is that also tying over to your writing? Because it's like, well, you've said a couple of times that they don't have a story arc, or, it's non-traditional. Is that what's stopping you from like finishing any of these and putting them out there, that, that it doesn't look like it's supposed to, or it should, even though we both don't like the word should?
I don't like shouldn't all over myself. No, actually, I've kind of been writing them on top of each other, and I've printed off some copies to take with me to Ottawa to leave with some people.
Nice.
As an opportunity to, for them to critique or just to have whatever. One of my friends had said that, because I talked about this gallery visit. I talked to her about that and said that she said, "Oh, I want to buy it. If you produce it, I'll buy it. I'm right in line. I want to buy that book." And I thought, well, I will bring her a copy. It's a black and white, but that's only because my stupid printer, my color printer, works like crap.
And if she gives you some money, if she hands you like a 20 or a 50 or whatever, will you take it?
Sure. Why not?
How does that feel?
It feels unlikely. But do I think it's worth it? Yeah, I do, actually. I actually think that there's a lot of really interesting wisdom. The tricky part with writing for me is and I know it's not necessarily a valid reaction.
Doesn't need to be valid. If that's how you're feeling, it's how you're feeling.
It's so common to me that I feel like what I'm saying is common knowledge. And yet I know it's not.
But even if it is common knowledge, I'm just trying to think. When we hear a song, sometimes we can be like, oh, that's done before, or we can tell by the artist's voice or whatever. But we don't often ever think, oh, I'm not going to listen to that, or all the songs in the world have been written, or there's no point being any new songs or whatever. We're just excited. Like, here is another piece. Here's another finished product. Here's another thing we can add to the repertoire on my Spotify playlist, if. So I think,
right.
When we're creating something, the only hold up or hesitancy or thing I can see of a book, books can go the same way as websites. as in we've created something and then that feels like the hard yards, but the writing and editing and producing and publishing of the book is literally like 5% because it's the marketing, telling people that it's out there, getting it in front of the people. That's, you know, kind of a lot of the work.
True. Which, you know, yeah, it
But I'm
is.
curious
Yeah.
because you seem so confident. I don't sense a fear of rejection. I don't sense it's not good enough. I don't sense any of these things. But what is the kind of 7 out of 10, let's start hang out in the inner tube, like, you know, you're good. What's to stop you going like, this is good externally?
I guess it's because I don't feel like it's necessarily unique.
What's unique? What's something that's unique? Give me an example. Everything's kind of copy paste currently. There's no new ideas. There's just new packaging.
You're right. I mean, there are new ideas, but you're right. It's
give me a new idea.
And I do understand that as people are evolving or developing up the ladder, what someone knows now, which seems commonplace for me, seems commonplace. I know there's people who don't have a clue what I'm talking about.
Yeah, 100%.
So I do understand. I've heard that, whatever. Like I say, a terrible coaching client, because like a diet client, it's not for lack of knowledge. it's not that I don't know what I probably should, the answers or whatever. But sometimes being poked helps to clarify the answers.
Well, what comes to mind is we're out for a picnic and we've unpacked and we've sat down. And you're kind of comfortable. You got your sandwich and your good book or whatever. And you kind of get stung by an ant. You're like, oh, that's kind of frustrating. And you get stung by another ant. How many times do you need to be stung before you get up and move? So it's kind of like, I know what to do. I've got an awareness and you've got no issue starting. Like you're writing 3 books concurrently. You have art coming out the wazoo. You have a contact already at the community center. You've kind of floated the idea and they've been like, yes, please. So it's kind of like a smorgasbord is available to you. But which one is going to be, it's like, and I'm in. No holds barred. Let's go. Get behind this and become, from the what I lovingly refer to as a wannapreneur to the entrepreneur.
Yeah. There is one other thing holding me back a little bit at the moment, and that is that we're traveling. I'm traveling now for a week, and then in August, we're traveling for another 3 weeks. So there's this lack of continuity that leaves me kind of going, well, I can't really stick my oar out there and then not be here, not be able to respond. I mean, one of our trips is to Ireland, and we will totally be not able to respond.
Incredible. But if you're putting your oar out, like to the community center, and you were just making inquiries, could you say, I'm not available until September? Like sometimes these things are booking 6, 12 months out. If they're talking about you doing a workshop or something, you just, as you said, putting your oar out. You're not like, I'm going to turn up tomorrow with a fully stocked boat.
Yeah, it probably would be worth my whatever to put together the workshop proposal for a date at the end of September, for instance. Yes, that's not unreasonable. The other not unreasonable is actually booking the Women's Day, like just booking that day for a gallery showing.
Yes.
At the community center, because it's an amazing facility.
And what comes up in your body when you think about that? So say you were like, okay, when we get off this call, or I know it's very late for you, so tomorrow or later this week, I'm going to sit down and make a workshop proposal date for the end of September. What comes up for you at the thought of doing that?
I'm actually fairly comfortable with that right now.
So are you going to commit to doing it, or do you want to try and do it?
I'm going to commit to doing it. I'm going to commit to posting it on Facebook with, you know, with the end of September date, whichever one I pick. I haven't done that yet, but yeah, I think that's a doable thing. If I have it in my studio, I can only manage 3 people at a time. I can only manage 3 people at a time anyway. So people.
I get you.
And the last time I did this, and I did it once, only once, and I was shocked at how much time conversation takes in the process.
100%.
And I'm going, something I can do in 2 hours takes like 5 with other people, because I don't really, even if I talk to myself, don't interrupt my flow.
Yes, and everybody's different. Have you got a pen or a journal or notebook, some paper, something in front of you?
Yes.
I want you to try and pick it up for me.
Pick it up.
I want you to try and pick it up for me.
Try and pick up my notebook.
That's not what I asked you to do. I asked you to try and pick it up, because I wonder if the reason the books aren't finished or the proposals haven't been through or the community, the stuff hasn't been sold is because you've been trying for a while. And like when we try, you know what it's like, we can kind of let ourselves hook, oh, I'll try that. Whereas when you commit, that's why I'm like you said, you're going to set a date for the end of September. You're not trying. You're like, this is the date. The way you were speaking back, if you watch this through, I'm going to go and find the 3 people. There's a different energy to, I'm going to try and write a book. I'm going to try and sell my art. I'm going to try and have a website. I'm going to, try is like the ultimate way to let ourselves off the hook. Whereas the energy you were just speaking about is in, I'm going to put together this workshop proposal date for the end of September. I'm going to run this is a totally different energy and result. And then after you've done it, because you were so close, you have it so close to hand. You're like, there's a maximum of 3 people. I already know that. You could run it, and then you could be like, for this amount of work that I have to put in and for this amount of energy I have to put out, I charged way not enough. That's terrible English, but you know what I mean? Like, it was like, next time I do this, it needs to be twice as much or 3 times as much because of the amount that goes into it. And sometimes too, I don't know, you haven't said it explicitly, but I wonder if it's kind of like on your own, following your own muse and whatever, and on your own time, it's so much easier than when teaching is great. But, if you're being rewarded for it enough to make it worth it. Like one of my husband's friends makes these most beautiful tapestries, absolutely gorgeous. And a number of times people have asked him if they could buy them. And he's like, yes. And then when he's given the price, they've all about fallen over and like, I don't want to spend that much. And he's like, well, I'm not selling them then. He's like, the amount of time that I put into this, like the hours and hours to do the intro, his things are as neat on the front as they are on the back, and he shows them proudly, whereas most people's is a shit show. But he's like, and I'm just happy to keep them myself. But it's kind of like if you run this first workshop in September and you commit to it and you charge whatever, and then you're like, never again for this. And then you charge however much. Because there's only 3 people too. People got to understand. Because I wonder, I don't know if you haven't said this, because it comes back to you can't make a living off art, like the starving artist archetype. Some people won't want to pay it. That's okay. But other people will.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to find a price. I have to make a price tag for this thing too. And,
So the first 3 are likely to get a super bargain and an amazing deal. And then, because the other thing too, that you said, like, I have an aversion to people. I get it. So do I. I run my business entirely online. And I don't know, maybe down the line you could come up with something you could do online. You have a wide angle camera and then people are in their own house with their own gear and they're not mucking up your paintbrushes or whatever, But then you're kind of like, what is the price? Like, it was funny. Somebody asked me to teach something in person and I said, no, I don't teach in person. I only teach online. And anyway, long story short, I gave them a price, which in my head was my fuck off price. It's like, they're never going to pay that. And they did. And I was like, oh my gosh, because they wanted me to teach in person. And I don't enjoy it and I'll never do it again. I'm back online because that's what I like. I don't, you can't pay me enough. But, you could be like, you're not going to try. find out until you try, but we don't like try. Give it a go, schedule something, commit to it, and then be like, this is what. So after you've done this workshop, so September, either that afternoon or if you're exhausted, because people, the very next day, sit down with your journal. What went well? What didn't go well? What would I do differently next time? Because we don't know until we've actually done it. So you can think we know, but you could be like, this was the best thing ever and I loved it. Or you could be like, yeah, I tried to pack too much into it. Or I don't know. Like whenever I teach workshops with groups as opposed to one-on-one, it's hard to predict because the flow and the unity of the people you'll get through heaps. And other times it will be like, it was just this one piece. But to have enough ready as a facilitator to follow the flow of the group, as you said, especially with that process, what did you call it? Diva, divinely inspired visionary art. I imagine some people would be with you and some people would need a lot more, I don't like the term hand holding, but explanation, support through the process.
Hand holding. Yeah. It's an interesting, art is an interesting process to, especially to guide someone through, because you don't want them imitating you. Like you don't want them trying to copy your piece. I've seen those paint parties where everybody comes out with the same painting. I'm going, I would absolutely hate that.
Yeah,
I
this
would
is not a
hate
paint and sip or a paint by numbers or a,
I would hate to teach it, and I would hate to come out with it. Like I would just, although my daughter did one, she said, oh, it was a fun evening. But you've got something you probably won't hang on your wall. Whereas the two people that I did take through the process, and they did get a bargain. They like paid $30 a piece. It was basically covering the raw materials, not my time at all. But it was a fun afternoon and it was okay. But it gave me my qualifications, my certification. That's all I really needed. At any rate, both of them went home and hung their paintings up in their house. And one of them, she said, I'm shocked every morning when I look at it that I did that and that it means something. Like
that
not just
so beautiful.
Like she said, it doesn't look like somebody else's art. And she wouldn't have probably gone out and bought it. But it, having come from the heart.
Yes. And people, I imagine, could go the process, who would enjoy it, would come back and do it again. So part of you might be like, well, why would they do it again? Because whatever they're going to invoke, download, put forth, aspect, element of themselves will be different. Like, if they say the river's going past and you put the cup into the river, you get a different water, even though the river's the same. So as you had these workshops, as they evolved, you could have a lot of repeat business because people want to access a different element of themselves. Like, I imagine if I was painting something from within me, some days it'd be red and smash and whatever, and other days it'd be more like, But like, if you were to grow this into something that felt enriching for you and enriching for them, never at the expense of you, but in the beginning, you're like, I'm going to commit to this one day at the end of September, get the 3 people, set a price, run it, and then go through it. Because Simone Soul, she has a business, and I think last time she put her numbers out, she makes about $5 million US a year. Like, makes a pretty penny. And unlike a lot of people who I kind of raise one eyebrow at when they put their prices on, I actually think that she's legit, but we never know. But she started with $28 tarot readings. And one of my friends, like fellow business colleagues, was like, we were coming up together. Like, I knew her when she did $28 tarot readings. So you could be like, in the beginning, I had $30, divinely inspired visionary art. And now a custom workshop day with me is 5,000 or 15,000. And you right now, I'd be like, that'll never happen. People pay, like there's what's her name? Kanye, Kim Kardashian, whatever. They got somebody to make a rocking horse for their kid that they spent $175,000 on for a custom rocking horse. It happens.
that kids don't even use.
Probably never would have touched. But, you know, like the thing that you're making is not a paint and sip art and wine cheese evening. It's a very unique, very specialized thing. And it could get to that, but it's going to start with this lower thing. And also you got to see if you even like it. Because sometimes I have these dreams and visions of something I'm going to put together, and then I run it once and I'm like, never doing that again. Or I'm never doing it like that. But we never know until we do it.
Yeah. Indeed.
So how do you feel, as I said, tomorrow, because I know it's late for you, to actually find a date that works for you, to be like, I'm going to do it on this date, and create your flyer or post or whatever? Because you could probably fill it with a 3 without even needing to put it up on Facebook. I'm sure there's people you could reach out to and say, hey, I'm doing this. It's this much. You in? And they'd be like, hell's yeah, take my money.
Well, that I'm not so sure about. And that, it's very weird because the people, there may be a few, but the people around here are really, really difficult to access. Like, people are very isolated here. Putting it actually on the Facebook opens it up to people who randomly will go, hey, that sounds interesting. I don't know this person. Like, in some ways, not knowing the people might actually be easier.
Ooh, that's interesting. So how would you feel about putting it onto Facebook and with a date and a time and a price?
Well, I'm going to do it.
I love it.
I'm going to use the Riverport Facebook site because it's accessed by the whole community.
That's so good.
And like my Facebook page would like sit there and do.
Do you have a newsletter list? Do you have anybody's emails?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I have people's emails, but
I just wasn't sure if you were sending emails or whatever. Because you like to write, so I'm surprised you don't send emails.
It's a very weird thing. When I did my soul art certification, one of the comments made by the person who does sort of the assessments, she said, I'm trying to figure out whether or not you're in the habit of an economy of words or whether you're holding back. Because I don't tend to write a lot. Like, when I'm answering a question, I just tell you the answer. Some people write a document and I'm going, that doesn't work for me. Like, I'm enjoying writing largely because I'm just enjoying the flow of the words. And I used to write a lot of poetry. I used to write actual poetry, like haikus and other stuff and I got very heavily into wordplay. Like, I love words. I love the insanity of the English language, where one word means 3 different things and you can play with that. So, and I'm very, very conscious of the fact that words are spell casting. What you say
100%.
is powerful. Everything you say is powerful. And, I'm a big believer in Mike Dooley's comment, your thoughts become things. And without, I've always had a philosophy that without thoughts, without the imagination, you wouldn't even have a chair to sit on. Like, it has to start there. So I have a strong belief in the power of words, but I don't believe in throwing them around too much for, if I'm just writing, if somebody asked me to give them an answer, I will give them the answer. I don't elaborate. I don't go through. And so I wasn't really holding stuff back. I just gave her the answer. If she wanted more information, ask me another question.
So as this grows, though, we're close to time, but just thinking about, because, you said at the beginning, more clarification about your service. So if you're like, I can start with this diva process, or however you called it. Like, you know, I'm going to offer them, the first one's going to be in September. From there, you can decide, do you want to do one a month, one a quarter, whatever, but just do the first one and then feel it out from there. How you get in contact with these people or follow up, whether you get their email address. Because the thing is, some people send, like I send an email, I send a couple, but you know, one a week is just basically an update about my life or whatever. And then sometimes it will have a PS, and sometimes I send pure sales emails. Supermarkets don't go, here's some value. They go, hey, we've got this type of bread back in. So you could be like, I'm going to collect emails to let people know about my services. I do this one-on-one, online, in person, or whatever. And then if they know from the get-go that they're going to hear from Grace and what she's got happening, and then when you sell a piece or whatever, you could say, hey, would you like to add me to your email list? Like, there's a lady who makes custom jewelry who I absolutely love her stuff. And I'm like, can you just email my husband whenever you do with his permission, here's his email address, Valentine's Day special, Mother's Day, whatever, like, send out, this is what I have, because I want him to buy from you. I like your stuff. It's good quality. And I think she's like, oh, I don't want to be bothering people or whatever. And I'm thinking we need to really rewire that, because we give somebody our email address because we want to hear from them. Like, you know,
not bothering them if they asked.
Yeah, but if you are running these things,
different.
rather than hoping I see it on Facebook and hoping for the best, if it's kind of like, oh, you know, oh, Grace is doing another thing, I'm in. Once you've done a few of these, you might not really have to market so much, because I think we've lost touch with word of mouth and referrals and getting in contact with actual people, and gone to the days of social media and vanity stats and whatever. And it's like, when we're doing something bespoke with small numbers like this, you really don't need a lot to start getting really good traction and re-sign rates and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a couple of other minor ideas I was thinking, but this is where I want to start.
I love it.
But at some point I may go and, even if it's volunteer, go and propose to do workshops at seniors residence or schools.
Some of those places would have funding for that too. So you might not need to volunteer. You might volunteer the first time, and then, and you know, a lot of these places, like there was a lady, so I know you haven't listened to any of these yet and we're almost at time, but her name is, it's failing me. I'll find it later and send it through to you personally. But she was basically doing these workshops and community centers. She did one and they funded for her. So she drove like 5 hours. She wants to. She's a very, you know, basically her vision for her business, if you watch the session, is that she has like a combi van kind of thing, and the husband and the kids come in, and she gets paid by these community centers to drive around and run her workshops. Like, that's her vision. But like, a lot of them have funding from the community or whatever. And, you know, so you might find that old people's homes, just retirement villages, libraries, schools, whatever, have funding, and then they'd rather spend it with you than. And sometimes if they don't spend it, they lose it. So everyone's winning. Wouldn't be so quick to volunteer. You could also, or you could volunteer the first time and say, hey, I'll do one to show you what that I can do, and then from there negotiate.
Yeah. I would like to get this other thing a little bit under my belt before I go out trying to expand to larger groups.
100%. And also you might cap it too.
Many of them.
Because can you imagine trying to do that with a room full of people? You might have to have a different service for that. This process versus what I do in a group. But do this first and see how it goes and evaluate. And then from there, look at the next thing.
Yeah.
So what's your biggest takeaway been from this session, Grace?
Probably a plan. That would be my biggest takeaway. I have an assignment.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
Did you want a clarification about what your service is? Do you feel like you have that? At least the beginnings of it?
Yeah, the beginnings of it. It's, you know, I mean, definitely what I have to offer is unusual, and therefore hard to kind of define who's my client or who's going to be interested. 100%. It's not really who's my client. There's actually nobody who couldn't do this or benefit from it. But, it's reaching those people and saying, hey, give it a try and see what it does for you. Because I did do one thing of this last year or 2 years ago. And I got letters back from people later saying I had no idea the impact. Like, it was just an hour-long little process, really, of only part of what I ultimately do, but just it was actually just the soul art part of it, which is soul art is a way of connecting to your body wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So you connect with sort of where are you most comfortable with your body, and what part of your body is least comfortable. I mean, ideally you do a whole body map, but I find that's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And takes way too much time. But if you chose two parts of your body, one piece that gives you great joy, and the other part that gives you irritates or problems, and you trace those items, interconnecting them, and then from there you kind of let it speak to you. Like, you play with it, you color it, you do whatever you want to do with it, and then let it talk to you. But you begin the process first by saying, what are you looking for? What are you asking your body?
Yeah. That sounds like a whole powerful thing. You've got so
It is
many
quite
things.
powerful. It is a powerful thing. And as I say, I had one woman write back, she said, I had no idea that I was as afraid of my husband until she did this process. She had no, like, it was there, it was undercurrent in her life, but she did not realize until she did this thing that she was holding this fear in her body.
I love that. Well, thank you
And
so
I
much,
thought,
Grace. Anything else before we wrap up?
no, I I will send that book to you.
I'll send that interview to you. It's Laura Vincent. I remember now. I'm just think her name came up. But yeah, she's running workshops and stuff. And yeah, commit to September. Follow up with me. Let me know how it goes. I'm sure you'll have the 3 people in no time. I love it. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for listening. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.